Welcome to the Simpler Business Podcast, where we talk about ways to do what you love and serve your people in a way that brings you income and freedom. I'm your host, Marissa Roberts. Join me as I chat with my favorite entrepreneurs about how they simplify their biz so that you can simplify yours. Too many business owners focus on scaling and growing without the proper foundations in place, which tends to cause problems as they grow. This can lead to burnout, this can lead to structural issues, and those sorts of things, they cost a lot of time and money and energy to fix. So if you can avoid that, that would be great. Scaling with sustainability at the forefront is really the key to healthy, lasting growth for your business. Tressa Beheim joins me on the show today to talk about why having strategic marketing and operations support in your business is essential to scaling in a sustainable way. Tressa is the founder and driving force behind Simplify Now, where she serves as an online business manager and strategic partner. Leading a team of dynamic individuals, she is the go-to expert for entrepreneurs looking to streamline their operations and build their businesses. Tressa combines the knowledge and the business acumen attained through an MBA and years in various corporate positions, with nearly 15 years in the online world to help her clients execute their big and their small visions in the real world. Tressa's unique understanding of what happens behind the scenes and fresh insights into how business owners can make their businesses work for them helps her clients stay in their zone of genius. Tressa, welcome. I'm so excited you're here.
So am I. I'm great. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
I love this topic because my whole podcast and my whole business is based on simplifying things for other business owners. And I think there's so much out there that really causes a lot of overwhelm and causes a lot of overwork and doubling up on things that doesn't need to be like that. But business owners are generally so focused on their zone of genius and wanting to help people that they kind of forget about all that stuff that can happen behind the scenes that can be a lot smoother than they experience, right?
Yes, for sure. And I think that, there is a hustle culture is real, right? There's this huge amount of pressure to be bigger and bigger and bigger and make more money and more money. And it can be tempting to not really stop and think, like, is that the business that I want? And, what are the things that I'm doing that make sense and don't make sense? And so I really love getting into people's businesses and helping them see, like, oh, I don't actually have to do all these things that, people on the internet are telling me I have to do. It's just one of my greatest joys in life.
I think to have somebody that can help you cut through all that busyness that you see happening online is a really powerful thing. And in fact, I would say to most of my clients, that's really the first area you should be investing in, is having somebody work with you to show you, exactly like a clear aligned pathway for you and your particular business, rather than chasing everything else you see online and, working 24/7 in order to try and accomplishment. So I think this is going to be a really good conversation for our listeners, but I'd love to know, how did you get into this area of business? Is it something you've always been passionate about?
Yeah, so actually, I started doing this when my second daughter was born. So I used to teach, I used to teach test prep online once I had my first daughter. My husband was in grad school, and I was, kind of working during the day. He was coming home, taking the kids, and then I was going into the bedroom and working from my computer, teaching test prep for the evening. But when I had my second daughter, she was not as easy of a baby. And so that became a little bit more challenging to be at home all day with two relatively young kids and then working in the evenings. And so one of my good friends at the time was a systems engineer for online businesses. And she said, this is basically what you used to do, in an office. You could totally do this. So why don't you give it a try? And so I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And very quickly realized, oh, this is actually really fun. Like, I really enjoy this. I started as a VA and then very quickly started doing, higher level tasks. And I did this for several years as an employee for someone. And then when we moved to Germany, I decided to start my own business. And I worked on a consulting and strategic level with clients. And one of the things that I kept seeing is we would come up with these great plans and these great strategies, but they often didn't have the depth in their own team to actually execute on any of those strategies.
Yeah.
And so then I started adding members to my team to be like, okay, I don't want to be building a sales page at 3 a.m. anymore. So I had someone who, could start doing those pieces for me. And it's a really great blend because not all business owners want to have a big team,
Yeah.
but they sometimes need those gaps filled on in their business. And so this kind of gave them an opportunity to get that consulting and that strategy with some execution support as needed.
That's a really nice way to do it, because you're right. I think business owners, we tend to default to, I've got to do it all myself. And then we never get time off. And it takes us hours to do what could take, someone who's used to doing that task a few minutes.
Yes.
And then we go completely the other end of the scale and go, oh, I'm going to have to employ a team member, but then I'm responsible for their paycheck. And what if it doesn't work out? Then I'm, going to feel terrible there. So we swing wildly from one to the other, right? So this is a really nice in the middle option. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that I sometimes see is people will often just kind of have a string of freelancers that they bring in for a project here or a project there. But if they don't know your business, it takes a lot of effort to get people up to speed on how you like things. Even if you have good SOPs and processes in place, it still takes time to learn someone's business. And so, having someone who is in your business all the time and knows it, but is able to have, oh, we need a sales page this month, but we don't need another one for 6 months, not a problem, has worked out really well.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so then let's talk scaling. How do you think scaling without thinking about sustainability how does that cause problems for business owners? Because we do tend to jump in, we don't think big picture, do we?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of two key things that I see happen when we're not keeping sustainability in mind. One is from a personal level, we tend to burn out, right? Because it's all about holding on by sheer grit. We're just going to work harder, work longer, do more, and that's going to solve the problem. And it will work for a long time for some people. Some people can make it work for years, but eventually what tends to happen is they burn out. And for some people that can be fixed very quickly. And for other people, they're just like, I just can't do this anymore. Like I'm just done. Right.
Yeah.
And, I've seen that happen quite often with people that come to me. And sometimes, like I said, we're able to fix it within a couple of months and they go back to being very happy in their business. And some people are like, I'm just done. I can't do this anymore. And that's obviously, they started a business for a reason. So that's really sad to see that burnout prevent them from getting what they wanted. And then the other thing is more structural, right? When you're just constantly focused on scaling, you often don't have the foundation in place for that to actually last. And so often what happens is you might have one really big launch, right? Or you might have one really big stream of revenue that works well for a little while, but if one thing changes, it's just going to vanish because you don't actually have the lead generation in place. You don't have the back end processes that are supporting all of those customers that you're getting. And so you'll see these really big peaks and then these really big crashes because there just isn't that foundation in place to support it all long term. And oftentimes when we're focusing just on scaling, we're not thinking about what do we do in between to make the growth that we've attained last, right? And we see this a lot with like opt-ins and lead gen. People will do like, I have a launch coming up, so I'm going to spend 6 weeks list building. And then they're so busy with the launch that they don't list build for another 6 months. And then it's like, oh, I have another launch, I have to list build, right? As opposed to being able to just consistently do that all the time so that it's not, a big deal when the next launch is coming up.
Oh, that totally appeals to me because this is why I'm not a massive fan of launches. Like my friends do launches and they're amazing at them and they get great results from them, but they've got structure by now. They've got teams, they've got, a
Yeah.
process that works and a backup. But for me, I don't like feast or famine. I don't like peaks and troughs. I don't like working, and then taking a full on break. I like balance. I like predictable. I like knowing what's going to happen every month and having a backup plan in case something doesn't work out, have 2 or 3 options going on. So that really speaks to my soul because I'm not that adrenaline person. You know how some people do really well with adrenaline and they're like, yeah, when it's gung
Yes.
ho, that's when I'm at my best. I am not that person.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there is, I often say that like a really solid business is actually pretty boring.
Yeah.
Like people will often be like, oh, it's so exciting. I'm like, actually, we kind of want it to be boring. Like we really do, because that adrenaline, that excitement that we get is often because we're not prepared and because there's a fire drill. And I mean, there's always going to be tech is going to be what tech is going to be. And there's always going to be little things that come up that we can't anticipate. But for the most part, if we're sort of focusing on building a sustainable business that's going to be there for years and years, like it's pretty boring. And a lot of times like the sexy stuff is what happens when we're not focusing on the right things.
Yeah, that's so true. I really think it does really help with that long-term viability of your business, because it's one thing to scale, but it's another thing to scale and still have your business long term. And I think it's a benefit for everybody really, not just business owners, but their customers as well, because you want to be a
Mhm.
reliable business that's going to stick around. You don't want to just disappear within a few years and have people go, "What happened to them?"
For sure, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So then what does an integrator really do? How do you know that you need one? Because we're so wrapped up in our business, we see exactly what's in front of us. And that big picture thinking, I think, is just not a natural default, is it?
Yeah, so I think it looks a little different for everybody. So, depending on your strengths and your weaknesses, is often where you will see an integrator be the most useful. So, I work with a lot of creatives and I work with a lot of people who would probably classify themselves as like visionaries, meaning that they have a lot of ideas. They're very excited about what they do and they tend to move at a very quick pace, right? So, they've got a lot that they want to do. And so, a big part of being an integrator for those types of people is kind of helping them stay on track and helping them stay the course that they've set for themselves
Yeah.
by holding a lot of those moving pieces, right? So when we're thinking about, building something new, business owners often they know what they want. They know that they want to build this course or this product or have this coaching program, whatever it is. They know what the end result is, but they often have no idea how to get there,
Yeah.
all the moving pieces that are involved. And so an integrator can really come in and say, okay, you want to have a membership at the end of, at the end of this process. Your goal is to have a monthly membership that does these 6 things. Here's how we get there, right? And really helps make that path much clearer and then fills in all the gaps of, okay, we need a membership plugin that does this thing, right? Okay, here's 3 options that I've worked with in the past, or maybe I've never done this before. I'm going to go do some research and come back and tell you, based on what you said you wanted, here's some options, here's some pros and cons. So, kind of doing a lot of that higher level legwork so that you don't have to. And, as far as knowing when you are ready or when you need one, I often see that I mean, again, it's a little bit nuanced for everybody, but there's some key things that I tend to see. One is that you feel kind of like I have all the things, but like nothing's really coming together the right way. And I've got sometimes people actually have a team in place. They have a few members, they might have a couple people that they work with, but they feel like I'm the only one that can actually do anything.
Yeah.
Like I can't give anything to my team because either I don't know how, or I don't have the time, or I don't want to. So I just end up doing it all myself anyways, right? Or you just have so much to do that you can't get anything done, right? Oftentimes, business owners come to me in a state of overwhelm because they have been trying to do it all themselves, whether they have a team or not. And they just like, I just don't have enough hours in the day, right? But I don't have anyone on my team that I can hand things to without a big process. I just need to be able to say, this is what I need. Tell me what to do. Help me get it done, and then have it get done without a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, it's almost like you're kind of a problem solver and a puzzle fixer at once. And I think you're right. A lot of the time when business owners try to do everything, or they try and train their own staff in areas that the staff aren't naturally good at or haven't spent time in before, they spend so much time and effort, but also so much mental load. It sounds like you really save a lot of that research time, a lot of that, hey, this is what I want, but this is what it actually looks like behind the scenes. And the tech does change very quickly. And somebody in your role or someone on your team would be up to date with those tech changes and those trends. But business owners who don't work in that field wouldn't even know where to start, right?
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times, what I do is a lot of answering questions and giving input on plans. And also, I often joke with my clients that like hiring someone to tell you no is really important in your business.
I was just about to say, I bet you tell them when something's not going to work as well.
Yes. And so, I always say no with love, but like oftentimes I will be, there's usually two big reasons I say no. One is capacity, right? Because yes, this brilliant idea that you had last night is a really good idea, but we have 47 things already in motion and there is just not the capacity to do this right now. So I can often be that voice of reason to say, hey, here's the 6 things that we're actively working on. We can totally do that new idea that you have, but which of these 6 things are we going to give up? And
Yeah.
sometimes that's enough for them to go, oh, right.
Yeah.
Let's put that 3 months from now, right? And then I will kind of keep track of that for the next 3 months so that it doesn't get lost. And then we'll come back to it when some of those current things are wrapped up. And then, yeah, sometimes I do kind of say, that doesn't feel like it's actually your business. Like, let's talk through this. And then in the conversation, they realize, oh, you're right. We either need to tweak it this way, or we need to add this or take this away. So kind of just letting them have that space to figure things out, but not entirely on their own.
I really like that. It's like you're their second business brain, right? So they can get all
Yeah.
the important stuff done and they can prioritize what they need to. And I think that leads to less physical effort for them and mental effort for them in the long run, which is really, really good. Do you find that it kind of eases stress then for the clients that you're like, do you see a pattern in how you see when you start working with them, and then after you've been with them for say 3, 6 months, even a year, do you see like things improve in a pattern?
Absolutely. So, usually people come to me often because they're very overwhelmed. That's sort of a huge camp of people that come to me. And then another camp comes to me because they've kind of been feeling like, again, I have everything, but it's just not working, right? And so there's just something that is like holding them back from whatever the next level is for them. And that, isn't necessarily a specific revenue point, but just something like is holding them back.
Yeah.
And so they will often feel, there's another phrase that they often use, which is like, oh, there's another like adult in the room, right? Somebody who really does care about their business as much as they do, and really is kind of there helping them take some of that load off and reminding them of, the things that are important, but not necessarily things they have to keep in their head all the time. And timelines and dates. And, I do work with a decent amount of neurodivergence. And so for them, numbers, dates, things like that can be really challenging.
Yeah.
And so just knowing like I don't have to be the one to keep track of, did we say the 21st or did we say the 22nd, right?
Oh,
And can you make sure that
mhm.
that's actually correct everywhere that we are putting that out there, is such a huge weight off their shoulders. So it does really tend to lessen their stress and ultimately helps them get more done with just a lot less effort because they don't have to do it all themselves. They can pass on some of those things that are more draining for them, more challenging for them, and really focus their often limited capacity on things that are actually going to move the business forward.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing. It's like you want to free yourself up as the business owner to A, do the stuff you actually enjoy, the whole reason you started the business in the first place, but B, to really drive the needle forward, to be able to start making good money in your business so that you're actually all of the time and effort that you're putting into it is actually worth it, because your customers are seeing benefits, but you're seeing benefits too from a logistical and financial perspective as well. And I know a lot of business owners really do struggle with that, the strategy piece, the marketing, the operations. So to be able to free yourself up to just be the creative person or the visionary or the leader, I imagine that's a really big load off their shoulders, right? It's almost like a huge relief.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, a lot of us that started a business, right? We didn't necessarily start a business to like do all these things.
Yeah.
These, I didn't start a business to write a newsletter every week, right? And but those are the things that actually get us customers and get us, audience. And so having someone who can both remind you and keep track of all of those things can be really helpful, because then you're not necessarily having to keep, what is it that I have to do for all this marketing stuff, right? Like someone is just telling you, okay, this month you have to do this, this, and this, and this for marketing. Once your part is done, we've got the rest of it. So don't worry about it. And now you can move on to these other things that you are probably more excited about in a lot of cases. And you don't have to waste your time and energy keeping track of what is needed for kind of just that base level, marketing that has to happen.
Yeah, you can focus on the stuff that's really important for you in your role to be focusing on. I love that. Tressa, I just feel like you have shone a whole beautiful spotlight on stuff that so many business owners don't know they need to know, if that makes sense. I think you're
Mm-hmm.
right. If people are listening today feeling like, I feel like I'm stuck somewhere in my business, but I don't know what's making me stuck, you are the person that they should be speaking to. And I think you're going to make things a whole lot easier for so many people. So if there's anybody listening today that wants to get in touch with you and talk more about this, or find out, what's it like to actually work with you? Where do you get started? What's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's just my name, tressabeheim.com. And I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook with the same, just Tressa Beheim. And I do try, I'm always available to answer questions. If you want to have a quick chat about, am I actually ready, right? You can reach out and we can hop on the phone and have a quick conversation about, is this right for me? Because, it's not right for everybody, and some people just aren't quite ready yet. But oftentimes you probably are ready and you just haven't realized it yet.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you kind of get that feeling for a reason, don't you?
For sure.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I'm going to make sure I've got your website link in the show notes, as well as your social media. Do you have a platform that you hang out most on? Do you find yourself on LinkedIn or Instagram the most when you're doing social?
Probably LinkedIn the most.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah. All right, everybody. I've got all the links for Tressa in the show notes. If you're feeling a little bit stuck in your business, if you're not quite sure what step to take next, or if you're feeling that kind of overwhelm that you feel, where you feel like everything is a little fire popping up and everything is urgent and important, and you're struggling to define the ones that actually are the things you need to do in order to help scale your business in a sustainable way, Tressa is the person to talk to. I hope that you've all enjoyed this conversation as much as I've enjoyed having it. Tressa, thank you for being on the show. It's been really enlightening for me too. And I've been in the business for like 12 years and I still learned something. Like there's so many aha moments.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Oh my goodness. All right, everybody, you know where to find Tressa if you want more, and I will see you in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Simpler Business Podcast. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to make it nice and easy for you, just the way we like it. If you're ready to simplify and scale your business, you can get started with my free audio class at marissaroberts.com. See you next time.